Hey everyone, and welcome to the All Sorts podcast. Now, this isn't just any episode. This is one of our deep dives. We've got some awesome material on Squid Game.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how it went from script rejection to, the top show on Netflix. There's so much to dig into here.
Seriously, we've got all sorts of stuff, behind-the-scenes info from Netflix. We've got articles on the cultural impact of the show.
Yeah.
We've got to look at K-dramas in general and even what makes a bestseller. So by the time we're done with this deep dive, you'll not only understand how Squid Game became such a global phenomenon, but also what that success tells us about the entertainment world and maybe even ourselves.
Yeah, I think one of the most amazing things is that the journey to success started, way before the show even premiered, over a decade.
Oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the creator, Hwang Dong-hyuk, he actually first came up with the idea for Squid Game all the way back in 2008.
Wow.
But the initial script, it was deemed too violent and too complex, not commercially viable. So he faced years of rejections trying to get it made.
I can't even imagine putting so much of your heart into a project only to be told that, it's just too much for audiences. That's got to be so disheartening.
Yeah.
It makes the eventual success even more incredible, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it really shows how much the entertainment landscape has changed. I mean, traditional broadcasters, they might have passed on Squid Game just because it didn't fit their, format or whatever. But then along came Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix seems like they're always willing to take risks on projects that other people might shy away from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think that Netflix's global reach played a part in Squid Game's success?
Oh, definitely. I mean, think about it. They have over 200 million subscribers all over the world. So Netflix provides a platform that just didn't exist for international content, 10 years ago.
It's almost like a whole new world of storytelling opened up.
Exactly. And we can't forget about those recommendation algorithms, right? Someone might be watching a lighthearted Korean rom-com and then boom, Netflix is suggesting Squid Game next.
Wow.
So it creates all these pathways for discovery that just weren't possible before.
That's a really good point. So we've got this innovative platform, right, with global reach.
Yeah.
But what about the show itself? What was it about Squid Game that captivated audiences from so many different cultures?
Well, one of the sources we have is from Evan Barringer. He's an American English teacher.
Okay.
And he shares his experience of actually falling in love with Korean culture through watching a rom-com. And this eventually led him to Squid Game. And it kind of shows how appealing it can be to get a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and foreign at the same time.
Yeah, I get that. You see the romance, the food, the family dynamics, and those things are relatable, right, on a human level.
Yeah.
But it's also, a glimpse into a culture that's different from our own.
Exactly. And it's not always a romanticized view either. We read about Marina Moore, who moved to Seoul, hoping to find that, Korean drama romance. But she quickly found out that real-life dating in Korea was not quite what she had expected.
Interesting. So we've got this allure of the familiar yet foreign, right? But it's not just about escapism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Squid Game also tackles some pretty heavy themes like social inequality and, the pitfalls of capitalism.
Yeah, definitely. And Professor Chung, he's a Korean film studies expert.
Okay.
He suggests that the reason why international audiences are so drawn to these alternative worlds, especially in K-dramas, might be because of disillusionment with their own societies.
That makes a lot of sense. So while people might initially tune in for the cultural immersion, or the entertainment value, they're also confronted with these deeper, more thought-provoking themes.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us back to the amazing journey of Squid Game, right?
Yeah.
Hwang Dong-hyuk, he was told his story was too much, too dark, too complex.
Right.
But those very elements, they were combined with this changing entertainment landscape and a global audience that was, hungry for something different. And that all contributed to the show's phenomenal success.
It's like this perfect storm of creativity and timing and cultural forces all coming together at the right moment.
Absolutely. And to think, it all started with a script that sat on a shelf for over a decade.
That's incredible. That's a really powerful reminder that sometimes the stories we need most are the ones that take the longest to find their audience.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Squid Game. It's amazing how this show went from script rejection to global phenomenon. It really makes you think about persistence, finding the right moment to shine.
I know, right? It took over a decade for this guy's vision to finally come to life.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, why 2021? What was it about that year in particular that allowed Squid Game to just capture the whole world's attention like it did.
Well, we've already talked about how Netflix make it possible for international content to reach a much wider audience.
Right.
But yeah, timing is everything, right? Think about what was happening in 2021. We had the pandemic still going on, economic uncertainty, and just like heightened tensions everywhere, socially and politically.
So are you saying that Squid Game, with its themes of like desperation and inequality, and all that competition, that it tapped into this like collective anxiety that was already brewing around the world?
Oh, for sure. The show portrays this economic disparity that's so real, and it shows like the lengths that people will go to for financial security.
Right.
And those are things that resonated with people all over the world who were dealing with the same anxieties.
It's almost like Squid Game gave those anxieties a face, like a story, and it allowed viewers to sort of process those feelings, even if it was through a fictional and, pretty disturbing lens.
Right, and we can't forget about the pure entertainment factor either.
Right.
Squid Game is a masterclass in suspense and intrigue. You've got these shocking eliminations, the unpredictable twists, the betrayals. It just kept viewers glued to their screens.
Oh, totally. It's like a twisted game show, but you just can't turn away even though you know something terrible is going to happen.
Exactly. And it's that combination of like horror, suspense, and social commentary that made it so powerful. It wasn't just mindless entertainment. It got people talking and forced them to confront these uncomfortable truths about society.
Yeah, earlier we were talking about those 12 elements of a bestseller, right?
Yes.
These ones from James W. Hall's analysis.
Yes.
Do you think any of those elements in particular played a bigger role in Squid Game's success?
Well, we've talked about a few already, like the whole controversial topic of economic inequality, the secret society running the games, and just the characters trying to, make a better life for themselves. But I think there are a couple more that are worth pointing out.
I'm listening.
One is this element of country people versus city people, which is really relevant, especially in Korean society.
Okay.
The main character, Song Gi-hoon, he's a perfect example of this. He's struggling to deal with all the complexities of city life, but he's also longing for, that simpler, more traditional way of life.
Right. It's like that tension between tradition and modernity, rural values bumping up against the pressures of urban life.
Exactly.
That's something that a lot of people can probably relate to no matter where they live.
Absolutely. And then you've got this element of like the hero as a rebel or nonconformist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sehong Gi-hoon, he might not be your typical hero, but he defies expectations and challenges authority. He's an everyman put into this insane situation where he's forced to make these impossible choices.
He's not afraid to break the rules, even if it means putting himself in danger.
Exactly. And I think that really resonates with people who are feeling, disillusioned with the systems and structures in their own lives.
So Squid Game basically combines suspense, right?
Yeah.
Relatable characters facing impossible choices, and then this social commentary that really hit home with a global audience that was already feeling all these pressures of living in a changing world.
Exactly. And its success really shows that people are looking for content that goes beyond just those traditional genres. They want stories that challenge their perceptions and make them think.
And that's exactly why we love doing these deep dives,
Yes.
It's about uncovering those deeper layers,
Yeah.
explore the cultural forces that shape not just our entertainment, but like
Yeah.
our lives,
Absolutely. And speaking of cultural forces, I think it's time we took a closer look at the context that gave birth to Squid Game, right? South Korea. They've got a unique and complex history that definitely influenced the show's creation.
Let's take a trip to South Korea then. What can you tell us about the country's history and the social dynamics there that might have shaped the show?
Well, for one thing, South Korea has gone through this crazy period of economic transformation.
Okay.
I mean, they went from a developing nation to a global economic powerhouse in just a few decades. But this rapid growth has led to some serious social issues, things like income inequality and just insane competition for resources and opportunities.
So some of those core themes in Squid Game, like the debt crisis and that whole struggle for financial stability, those are actually based on real problems that people in South Korea are dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. And this brings us to this fascinating concept in Korean culture called han. It's hard to translate directly, but it's kind of like a mix of sorrow, resentment, and a longing for justice.
I think I've heard that term before, but I'll be honest, I don't really understand it.
Think of it like this shared cultural experience. It's a deep-seated sense of oppression and injustice that's been passed down through generations.
Wow.
It's rooted in Korea's history of conflict and colonization and division. It's this feeling of being trapped by your circumstances, like your dreams and aspirations are being stifled.
Wow, that is really powerful. And when you explain it like that, it definitely sheds a new light on the characters in Squid Game, you know? They're all driven by this, like, desperation, this yearning for something better, a way to break free from the constraints of their lives.
Exactly. And that struggle really speaks to audiences around the world, especially people who feel disenfranchised or marginalized by the systems in their own societies.
So even though Squid Game is rooted in Korean culture and history, it still manages to tap into this universal feeling, of wanting a better life,
Yeah,
of fighting against a system that feels rigged.
absolutely. And that's what makes it such a powerful piece of work. It takes this specific cultural experience and uses it to tell a story that resonates with people from all walks of life.
It really shows how storytelling can bridge cultural divides and connect us through shared emotions and experiences.
Exactly. And Squid Game doesn't shy away from using that power to critique the very systems that are creating these feelings of, desperation and inequality.
Right.
We see that especially in the show's commentary on capitalism.
It doesn't hold back at all when it comes to exposing the dark side of capitalism. It shows the greed, the exploitation, the way it turns people against each other,
Yeah.
in this ruthless competition for survival.
Right. And that critique really struck a chord with audiences who are feeling more and more disillusioned with the current economic system. I mean, the gap between the rich and poor is getting wider, social mobility is harder than ever, and a lot of people feel trapped in a system that's designed to keep them down.
It's like Squid Game takes those anxieties and puts them right there on the screen for
Yeah.
everyone to see, right?
Yeah.
It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality of a system that often puts profit over people.
Exactly. It's a dystopian thriller, but it's also social commentary, a reflection of our own fears and frustrations about the state of the world. And it asks us to think, would we participate in a game like that if the stakes were high enough? What would we do for financial security to protect our loved ones?
Those are some heavy questions to think about,
Uh-huh.
and they definitely stick with you even after the show is over.
Definitely. Squid Game isn't just entertainment, it's like this morality play, a mirror reflecting our own anxieties and desires. And it forces us to look inward and ask ourselves what we would do in those same situations.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Squid Game.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this show went from, years of rejection to becoming this huge phenomenon. It sparked so many conversations about, everything from social inequality to the power of storytelling.
It really has. And in this final part, we're going to explore that legacy. You know how it's had an impact that goes way beyond the screen. It's influenced pop culture, even real-world actions, and I think it's changed the entertainment industry itself.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Squid Game wasn't just a show you watched and forgot about, right?
Yeah.
It was something that you discussed with your friends, argued about online, and you probably even saw it reflected in, the real world.
Yeah, for sure. It had a huge impact on pop culture. Almost instantly, those green tracksuits and that freaky giant doll became super recognizable, right?
Right.
Remember all those red light, green light memes?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Everywhere. It seemed like everyone was talking about Squid Game, putting in their jokes, Halloween costumes. Like you said, it was everywhere.
It really did become part of our collective consciousness, but it wasn't just some superficial trend or anything. The show's deeper themes really resonated with people, and it made them have real conversations about things like economic inequality, social mobility, the human cost of this system that can feel so rigged.
Right. It's like Squid Game gave those anxieties a voice and encouraged people to really think critically about the world. It even led to some, real-world action, right?
Yeah, definitely. There were reports of people donating to charities that helped those struggling with debt, and they said they were inspired by the show, by those characters and their desperation.
That's amazing. It's really heartwarming to see how a fictional story can inspire people to be more compassionate and want to help others.
It shows you the power of storytelling, right? How it can connect with us on an emotional level and even motivate us to make a difference. And Squid Game's influence, it went beyond just viewers. It had an effect on the entertainment industry, too. I mean, its success proved that there's this global appetite for content that isn't in English.
Yeah, it basically said subtitles aren't a barrier if the story's good enough.
Right.
And it opened the door for a lot of other Korean productions, didn't it? We've seen this surge in popularity of K-dramas and Korean films all over the world.
Totally. Like Squid Game smash that glass ceiling and pave the way for a more diverse and inclusive, entertainment landscape.
That's incredible. But we do have to acknowledge, right, that with such a huge cultural phenomenon, there might be some downsides, too. Some unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, there were those reports of kids reenacting the violent games from the show.
Oh, right.
And that raised some concerns about how graphic content can influence young minds.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even fictional violence can have a real impact, especially on kids.
It highlights how important media literacy is. We need to have these conversations about the stuff we're watching, especially with our kids.
Right. It's about finding that balance between enjoying the entertainment, but also being mindful of how it might affect us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to think about what Squid Game's popularity says about us, about humanity, our hopes, our anxieties, the world we live in.
I know, that's something I've been thinking about a lot. Why did this story, this one that was rejected for so long and had to wait a decade, why did it resonate with so many people around the world?
Maybe it's because it taps into these anxieties we all have about economic instability, social mobility, the human cost of ambition. It reflects a world that just feels really uncertain and competitive.
Maybe it's a sign that we're more aware of these issues now than ever before, even if we don't really know how to solve them.
Maybe. And I think it's also a reminder that we're all connected by these shared hopes and fears. No matter where we come from or what language we speak, the desire for a better life, for fairness, for connection, those are universal human experiences.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Squid Game, even with all its darkness and violence, it ultimately reminds us of that shared humanity.
And I think that's the real legacy of Squid Game. It's a show that got people talking, made them challenge their perceptions, and left us with more questions than answers.
Yeah, it's a story that will stay with us, long after we finished watching it. It makes us think about the world we live in and the choices that we make.
That wraps up our deep dive into the amazing journey of Squid Game. We hope you found it insightful and interesting.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, imagine what's waiting for you in our full episodes of the All Sorts podcast.
You can find us on YouTube. Just search for All Sorts Podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our latest explorations.
And hey, if you want to keep talking about this stuff, continue the conversation, come join our community on X, Instagram, and Threads. Search for @AllSortsPodcast, and let's connect.
We love to hear your thoughts, your insights, so keep those brains buzzing, stay curious, and until next time, keep exploring all the sorts of things that make life so fascinating.